Have you ever wondered what really happens when you stop contacting her? You didn't yell. You didn't break up. You simply withdrew. No texts, no calls, no updates, just silence. At first glance, it might look like nothing is happening. But deep within her mind, a storm quietly begins to brew. This isn't just about a missed message or a late reply. It's about something far more primal, a shift in power, a question of worth, and a cascade of emotions that most men never truly understand. You see, we live in a world where people crave connection, especially in relationships where rhythm and routine feel like emotional oxygen. And when that oxygen is cut off, when a man who once showed attention suddenly disappears into the shadows, a woman's mind doesn't rest, it races. She starts asking herself questions she can't answer. Did I say something wrong? Is he losing interest? Was I ever enough to begin with? And here's the twist most men don't see coming. She won't always show it, not at first. She may act indifferent. She may mirror your silence. She may even post pictures, go out more, and look like she's thriving. But don't be fooled. These are often smoke signals, meant not just for the world, but specifically for you. When you stop contacting her, you ignite something inside her. And what happens next can either draw her closer or push her into someone else's arms. This video is not just a surface-level analysis. We're going deep. We'll explore the psychological chain reaction that begins inside her the moment your silence speaks louder than any word. We'll break down the emotional defense mechanism she activates. And most importantly, we'll uncover the strategic responses she uses, consciously or unconsciously, to regain control. So whether you're using silence as a test, a boundary, or a genuine attempt to walk away, you need to know exactly what it triggers in her. Because once you understand this hidden dance between silence and reaction, you'll never look at no contact the same way again. Let's begin. To understand what a woman does when you stop contacting her, we first need to understand what that silence represents to her. Because to you, it might just be space. It might be clarity. It might even be a strategy. But to her, it can feel like abandonment. Let's start with a common scenario. You've been talking to a woman regularly. Daily texts, late-night calls, shared photos, shared laughs. It becomes a rhythm, unspoken, but deeply felt. Then something changes. Maybe you got busy. Maybe you started questioning the relationship. Maybe you decided to pull back to see what happens. So you don't text her one day, then another. Then a week passes. On the surface, you've just gone quiet. But beneath that surface, you've triggered something powerful. Uncertainty. And uncertainty, when it enters the emotional space between two people, can be more corrosive than rejection itself. At first, she might not panic. She might rationalize. Maybe he's just tired. Maybe he's having a rough day. Maybe he'll reach out tomorrow. But every hour that passes without contact chips away at her emotional security. She checks her phone, refreshes your profile, remembers the last conversation, replays it, analyzes it, reinterprets what you said and what you didn't. And then a darker thought slips in. Did I do something wrong? This is the first crack in her emotional foundation. Because when a woman doesn't have clear communication, she turns inward. She blames herself, not because she's weak, but because women are biologically wired to maintain relational bonds. When those bonds feel threatened, her mind begins the search for answers. What follows next is what psychologists call rumination, the obsessive overthinking of a situation that has no resolution. She might recall the last time you saw each other. Did you seem distracted? Did your hug feel less warm? Did you reply slower than usual? She starts reading between every line, every emoji, every silence. This isn't just anxiety. It's an attempt to regain control in a situation where she feels powerless. She scrolls through your old messages, searching for clues, confirmation, closure. But silence doesn't offer answers. It offers endless space for assumptions. And most of the time, those assumptions are not in her favor. To a woman, Emotional disconnection feels identical to emotional rejection, even if your silence is temporary, even if you didn't mean to hurt her, even if you're just working things out in your own head. She doesn't see that. She feels distance, and her brain interprets that distance as, he's no longer interested. He found someone else. I wasn't good enough. This interpretation doesn't need logic. It just needs time. And silence gives her all the time in the world to make up stories she believes are true. It's important to realize that silence doesn't exist in a vacuum. It creates meaning, even when none was intended. When you stop contacting her, she doesn't just hear nothing. She hears all the things she fears. Maybe I was too clingy. Maybe I was too distant. Maybe I was just a placeholder. And the longer the silence lasts, the louder those fears become. What started as curiosity, "What's he doing?" morphs into pain. "Why am I not worth the effort?" Every woman handles that silence differently. Some withdraw emotionally. They mirror your silence, not out of indifference, but out of fear. Others go the opposite direction. They reach out. They double text. They post stories for your attention. They try to appear unaffected while quietly falling apart inside. Both are defense mechanisms. Both are cries for clarity, but neither will give her the resolution she craves, because the resolution isn't in her hands, it's in yours. So what happens next? Sometimes she begins to test the waters. She might post something provocative or sentimental on social media. Not because she's moved on, but because she's wondering if you're still watching. She might drop a subtle message, a meme, a song lyric, a memory post from the last time you talked. She's not just reminiscing, she's fishing for a response. She wants to know, does he still care? Did he even notice I'm hurting? Was I ever significant? Enough to be missed? And if there's no reply, no sign, no echo from your side, that's when something begins to shift inside her. She slowly begins to detach, not because she wants to, but because she feels she has to. When the silence becomes prolonged, it forces her to make a decision she wasn't ready for. To protect herself, she starts building emotional walls. Not tall at first, just enough to keep you out of the most vulnerable parts of her heart. She might keep herself busy, distract her mind with new people, new activities, but deep down, she's not replacing you. She's shielding herself from you. Because to her, silence from a man isn't just a lack of interest. It's a message that reads, I don't value what we had enough to speak up. I'm not emotionally mature enough to give you clarity. Or worse, I've moved on, and I want you to guess that on your own. That silent message is more painful than any argument, because at least an argument means the connection still mattered enough to fight for. And here's the paradox. Even if she wanted to reach out, even if she thought about breaking the silence herself, something holds her back. Her pride, her dignity, her fear of rejection, her desire to be wanted without begging for it. So now she's stuck, between longing and letting go, between hope and hardening. And the longer this internal tug-of-war continues, the less likely she is to return to the version of herself you once knew. That open, affectionate, emotionally available woman. She slowly becomes more distant, more guarded, more self-reliant. Not because she stopped caring, but because she had to adapt. She needed to survive the emotional vacuum your silence created. And here's what most men miss. When you finally decide to come back, when you text again, call again, show up again, she's no longer standing in the same emotional space. You left her in the rain. And while you were gone, she learned to carry her own umbrella. By the time you return, you might find a woman who is polite, but no longer vulnerable, friendly, but no longer emotionally invested. She may talk to you, but something inside her has changed. Something has closed. And often you won't even know what you lost until it's too late. This is the real danger of silence used without intention. Not only does it confuse her, it can permanently change how she sees you, because what hurt her wasn't just the absence of your words. It was the absence of your care. the absence of your effort, the absence of your courage to communicate like a man. Before we move forward, remember this. When you stop contacting her, you're not just hitting pause. You're starting a process, a psychological, emotional, and spiritual process within her, one that will shape how she sees love, connection, and herself in the mirror. And unless you truly understand what your silence does to her, you may never understand why. One day, the woman who once adored you now looks at you like a stranger. Silence doesn't just create uncertainty. It awakens her deepest fears. It triggers emotions that were buried long before you ever met her. Old wounds, past rejections, unspoken insecurities. When a woman experiences silence from a man she once felt safe with, it can open the floodgates to a storm of thoughts and feelings she doesn't fully understand. Because now it's no longer about you not calling her. It's about what that silence says to the little girl inside her who was once ignored, abandoned, or made to feel not enough. You might think, it's just space. I'm giving her time. But to her, it can feel like you're emotionally walking away, not just from the relationship, but from her entire sense of worth. Why? Because many women are conditioned, consciously or unconsciously, to equate connection with safety. And when that connection disappears, so does her emotional equilibrium. You've likely heard the phrase, "she's being too emotional." But rarely do people ask, why is she reacting so strongly to something so simple? The answer is, it's not simple to her. Your silence isn't just a lack of attention. It's a reminder of every time she felt unloved, unwanted, or unseen. Once uncertainty takes hold, overthinking becomes her weapon and her shield. She replays the timeline. She reanalyzes your words. She questions her tone, her timing, her energy. What did I miss? Was I too available? Too needy? Too independent? She talks to her friends. She watches videos. She searches Google for answers. Not to shame you, but to understand herself. The mind of a woman in emotional limbo is a battlefield of what ifs and should I have. And the worst part? Every theory she comes up with leads her further away from peace. The longer your silence lingers, the more emotional noise it creates. She begins to feel emotionally dysregulated, ups and downs. One moment she misses you, the next, she's angry at you. Then she cries. Then she scrolls through your feed. Then she tries to forget you, but she can't. It's not obsession. It's emotional dissonance, the internal war between logic and emotion. Logic says, move on. Emotion says, wait, he might still care. And in that space between, she suffers quietly, because she can't scream at you, can't demand an explanation, can't force you to reply. So the pressure builds inside her chest, her mind, her spirit, and eventually it comes out, sometimes as passive aggressiveness, sometimes as detachment, sometimes as full-blown breakdown. When emotional, chaos becomes too much to bear, she switches to protection mode. She might go cold, block your number, delete your pictures. Not because she hates you, but because she needs to feel powerful again. In your absence, she feels powerless, and powerlessness is terrifying. So she creates distance to reclaim a sense of control. She posts that confident selfie. She goes out with her friends. She updates her status, unbothered. But underneath it all, she's not okay. Not yet, because power without clarity doesn't heal the heart. It only hides the wound. Eventually, something fundamental inside her begins to shift. When the emotional pain becomes too intense, her ego steps in to protect her heart. This is when she starts saying things like, I don't need anyone. I'm better off alone. Men are all the same. This is not who she truly is. This is her armor. She wears confidence like a mask, not to deceive you, but to survive without you. She builds a new version of herself, stronger, colder, harder to access. And the sad irony, the man she once wanted to be close to is the very reason she had to become someone else. The human mind cannot live in ambiguity forever. Eventually, it chooses a story, a narrative that makes sense of the pain. So she starts rewriting who you were to her. At first, you were the one. Now, you become just another guy who disappeared. A lesson, a warning, a name she no longer speaks with warmth. This reframing isn't out of spite. It's a psychological necessity. She cannot hold on to the fantasy and move on with her life. So she lets go, emotionally, then mentally, then physically, and when she does, she closes the chapter. Even if you message her later, even if you explain, even if you say, "I just needed time," it may be too late, because she already made peace with your absence and found power in her own presence. The emotional whirlwind your silence created, you may not see it, you may not feel it, but she lived it, she carried it, she cried through it, and she rebuilt herself from it. So don't be surprised if when you return, she no longer opens the door with the same heart. Silence may feel like an easy escape, but in love, silence is never neutral. It either creates safety or it creates scars. And the deeper the scar, the harder it is to love from the same place again. But let's go even deeper. Silence to a woman who once opened her heart to you isn't just the absence of your words, it's the absence of being seen. It forces her to question not just your role in her life, but her role in yours. She begins to wonder if the memories were mutual, or if she was simply a placeholder for your attention, a temporary character in a story where you were the only author. That self-doubt doesn't stay silent. It leaks into her body, her sleep, her energy, her view of love, and slowly she begins to change. She becomes more alert, more guarded. She starts saying things like, "Next time I won't catch feelings so fast. I'll keep my guard up. I'm done being vulnerable." And here's the tragedy. She's not just protecting herself from you. She's protecting herself from future love too. The love you made her believe in now feels like a risk she's no longer willing to take. Let's talk about something most people overlook: emotional residue. Even after the silence ends, even if you reconnect, what she experienced during that time lingers. Like invisible ink on the pages of her heart, those emotions, uncertainty, doubt, anxiety, never fully vanish. She may smile, she may forgive, she may try again, but a part of her now holds back, not because she wants to, but because her emotional memory doesn't forget how much it hurt. So your silence didn't just create temporary pain, it created permanent hesitation. She might start comparing new men to you, not because you were perfect, but because you left a mark, not a romantic one, but a warning sign. She'll scan future conversations for silence. She'll look for withdrawal. She'll brace for distance before it even happens. She's no longer open. She's prepared, and being prepared for pain means being closed to love. That's the real cost of emotional confusion. It doesn't just hurt in the moment, it shapes her future. From the outside, people may think she's doing great. She's traveling, she's glowing, she's living her best life. But what they don't see is how much she had to unfeel, how much she had to bury just to move forward. They don't see the playlist she skips because it reminds her of you. They don't see the route she avoids because it passes your old spot. They don't hear the sigh in her voice when she says, "I'm fine." She's surviving, not thriving, and maybe, just maybe, a part of her still checks if you viewed her story, not out of need, but out of memory. Emotional detachment doesn't happen all at once. It's slow, layered, almost invisible. First, she stops expecting your texts. Then, she stops wondering where you are. Then she stops caring if you come back. That's when you've truly lost her, because a woman's heart doesn't close with noise. It closes with silence. If you ever think she's overreacting, remind yourself of this. She gave you the softest parts of her soul. And when your silence met that softness, it hardened. That's not drama, that's trauma. And emotional trauma doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like, "I don't do relationships anymore. I don't trust easily. I'm fine being alone." But behind those words is a woman who once believed in something real and watched it dissolve without explanation. So, where does this leave us? it leaves us with responsibility. As men, our silence carries weight, not just because of what it says, but because of what it takes away. It takes away her certainty, her peace, her ability to trust her own feelings. It makes her doubt herself in future connections. It teaches her that vulnerability is dangerous. That intimacy leads to abandonment. And that is the opposite of love. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need all the answers. But if you care, even a little, you owe her clarity. Silence, when used as a weapon or a retreat, isn't masculine. It's cowardly. It leaves her to carry the emotional weight of a conversation you were too afraid to have. And in the process, you don't just lose her. You lose the version of her that trusted you, believed in you, waited for you. 1. She's not crazy. She's reacting to the unknown. First, we need to address a myth many men quietly believe, that a woman who reacts strongly to silence is being too much, too sensitive, too needy, too emotional. But what if she's not being any of those things? What if she's simply responding to a situation that was never explained? Imagine you're in the middle of a conversation with someone and they suddenly walk away, without warning, without a word. They don't return for days. You don't know what happened. You're left hanging, confused, anxious, hurt. You wouldn't call that an overreaction. You'd call it a normal human response to disconnection. This is what happens to her. But worse, because women are often more emotionally invested than they show. And when there's investment without closure, the emotional cost becomes exponential. The first solution, then, is to stop viewing her reaction as a flaw and start seeing it as what it really is: a need for safety, a cry for clarity, a desire to feel respected, even in absence. Not all silence is the same. You need to ask yourself, why did I stop contacting her in the first place? Was it a strategy to test her interest? Was it because you felt overwhelmed and needed space? Was it avoidance, hoping she'd just fade out of your life naturally? Or were you uncertain about your own feelings? Each motive carries a different energy, and depending on your intent, the damage caused or avoided can vary greatly. If your silence was intentional but kind, for example, you needed space to heal, you can still come back and communicate honestly. But if it was passive-aggressive, manipulative, or rooted in fear, then you need to own that first, before you try to reconnect. Why? Because she will feel the truth beneath your words before you ever say a single thing. Signs: she still cares. Even in her distance, so maybe you've been silent for days, weeks, even months, and now you're wondering, is it too late? The answer lies in subtle signs, because when a woman still cares, her silence isn't the absence of love, it's the presence of protection. Look for the following. She watches your stories, even if she never reacts. She hasn't blocked you. She occasionally posts emotional or indirect quotes. She leaves a door open, even subtly, liking a comment, replying to a mutual friend. She hasn't started something serious with someone else. These may seem small, but to a woman who's been emotionally hurt, they're signs of silent availability. She's still there, watching, wondering, protecting her heart. If you recognize these signs, you haven't lost her completely. But how you proceed next determines everything. When to stay silent and when to reach out. Let's be honest. There are moments when silence is necessary, when emotions are too raw, when you're unsure of what you truly feel, when words, if spoken too soon, could do more harm than good. But there's a difference between taking space with integrity and disappearing out of fear or confusion. So how do you know when to stay silent and when to break it? Here's a simple principle. If your silence is for healing, stay. If your silence is for hiding, speak. If you're working on yourself, reflecting, or navigating a difficult emotional storm, it's okay to withdraw temporarily, but only if you intend to return with honesty and clarity. If you're avoiding confrontation, hoping the problem will dissolve on its own, you're not protecting her or yourself. You're delaying the inevitable pain. Remember, what you avoid now will eventually confront you, either through her tears, her coldness, or her absence. Time doesn't fix what communication avoids. So, if you sense that she's still emotionally available, and if you've reached a place of clarity, then it's time to reach out. How to reach out the right way. Reaching out after silence is not about saying the perfect thing. It's about being real, grounded, and present. Here's what not to do. Don't text like nothing happened. Don't flirt to bypass the pain. Don't act as if the silence meant nothing. That will only deepen the wound. Instead, start with 3 things. Acknowledge the distance. I know it's been a while. I went quiet, and I understand that may have been confusing. Take ownership. I didn't handle that the right way. I should have communicated better. Offer honest clarity. I wasn't sure what I wanted, and I needed time to reflect, not disappear. It wasn't about you, it was about where I was mentally. If she still cares, she won't need perfection. She'll need truth. The most attractive thing you can offer her after silence isn't charm. It's emotional maturity. What to say, and how often. Your first message shouldn't be long, but it should be clean, honest, and gentle. Here's a sample. Hey, I know I've been distant, and I want to take responsibility for that. It wasn't fair to leave things so unclear between us. I'd like to talk, if and when you're open to it. No guilt, no pressure, just space and respect. Then, wait, let her respond on her terms. Don't follow up with, "Did you see my message?" Or, "Guess you don't care anymore." That will only confirm her fears that nothing has changed. After you've reached out with sincerity, allow her to process. Sometimes she may respond right away. Sometimes she won't. But if you've done your part with grace and ownership, you've already started to rebuild trust, even if she's not ready to show it yet. Reclaiming yourself. First, before you reconnect with her, you need to reconnect with yourself. Why? Because women can sense a man who reaches out from neediness and one who reaches out from clarity. If you want to rebuild the bridge, you have to stand on solid ground. Take inventory. Are you reaching out because you genuinely value her, or because you're lonely and miss the attention? Do you understand what triggered your silence? Have you grown, reflected, or shifted your emotional landscape? If you haven't done the inner work, then any message you send is just a bandage, not healing. So take the time to rebuild your routine, reconnect with your purpose, process your emotional triggers, define what you want moving forward, not just from her, but from yourself. Because when a woman senses that you've changed from the inside, her walls begin to lower, automatically. You don't have to prove anything, you just have to embody it. Be willing to listen, not just speak when the silence is broken and she's ready to talk. You'll need to resist the urge to explain everything at once. Instead, listen. Hold space. Let her share how it made her feel. Don't interrupt. Don't justify. Don't defend. Just be present. Say things like, "I hear you. You didn't deserve that. Thank you for being honest with me." This is how safety is. Rebuilt, not through promises, but through presence. Rebuilding the connection. Slowly, honestly, intentionally. If she opens the door again, don't rush in like nothing happened. Start with simple, low-pressure conversations. No expectations. No agendas. Just real, grounded interaction. Let the bond form again. Not through intensity, but through consistency. Ask her about her world, what she's been learning, what she's proud of, what she's afraid of now. Show that you're not just returning for comfort, but because you genuinely see her again. Women don't need perfection, they need presence. Real, steady, reliable presence. If you can show up, not as the man you used to be, but as the man who took responsibility and grew, she'll feel it. She might not say it right away, but she'll feel safer, more open, more willing. And from there, real reconnection becomes possible. If it's too late, accept it with grace. Sometimes even after your silence, she still cares. Other times, She's already moved on, not out of spite, but because she had to choose herself. And if that's the case, respect her decision. Don't beg. Don't guilt her. Don't try to reopen wounds she's worked so hard to close. Thank her for the experience. Honor what you shared. And walk forward, not as a man who lost, but as a man who learned. Because even if the relationship ends, it can still lead you back to yourself. And that is always a win. In the end, this isn't just about her. It's about you. About how you show up in relationships. About the kind of presence you offer the people who trust you. Don't use silence as a punishment. Use it as a pause, with purpose. Don't disappear without explanation. Step away with clarity, with maturity, with care, because the most attractive man is not the one who plays hard to get. It's the one who communicates like an adult, who holds space for real emotion, who honors connection even in distance. So whether you return to her or walk separate paths, be the man who turns silence into wisdom, not into regret. Because she may forget your name, your scent, your smile, but she will never forget how your silence made her feel. Make sure that memory is one of grace, not of ghosting.